Hi, my name's Paul. I'm a stay-at-home dad, but I'm also a microbrewer.
My dad getting this huge, big, enormous pot, pouring all this liquid, the extract stuff into it, and it's been really sweet and honey, but not nice. And putting bags of hops and just this stink in the kitchen. Smell of beer getting boiled for what seemed like hours. So that's my first memory of it. I think he used to put it in bottles for a while, but then a time later he started using a keg, like just a plastic keg. And they used to have a gas cylinder attached to the top of the keg itself, so you'd actually pressurise the keg. It's quite dangerous. So me and my friend, or friends, what we used to do sometimes is we'd come around to the front of my parents' house, get 2 milk bottles that used to be out for the milkman, go around the side of the house very quietly, gas, because it used to go, so you'd have to put a little bit of gas in very quietly while they're on the other side of the window watching TV. And if the curtains were open, we couldn't do it, but if the curtains were closed, we could. So if the curtains would be closed, we'd go over and very slowly pour ourselves 2 pints of beer and run off up the road and drink it. But how did I get to it? It was just an idea in the back of my head, and then it became easy to do it. I started off very slowly on the cooker, etc. The first one was fine, and it was just a kit. There was no boiling, or it was just mix it all together, leave it in a container. Yeah, and then stick it into bottles, and so that went fine. That went fine, but straight away after that, I went into extract grain. So that was just pure extract stuff with everything mixed in. So the next brew I did was extract, pure grain extract, and actual grains as well to make a stout. Straight away, that tasted better than the first. You start noticing that it just tastes nicer, tastes cleaner. So the first brew went well, the second one went better because I liked it more. And I did that extract and grain brewing for a good while. I did about, I don't know, 20 brews that way. Of all different types of beers, Guinness or stouts to red ales to lagery ales and that kind of stuff. So now full grain, all grain only, no extract. I'd say about my 6th batch or something like that was slightly not good, but I drank it anyway. Whereas this year, just before we went on holidays, I had a red ale. And as soon as I tasted it, I knew it was contaminated. I just after it being in the keg and everything. But before I put it into the keg, I tasted it and I went, oh, I'm not sure about that. And then I'd left it in the keg for another 2 weeks to age and stuff. And then I tasted it. It's just like I knew. If you think about beer, it's primarily, well, it's 90% water or something. There's just a grain flavour, whether that's a lager, a very light flavour, or a very deep flavour. So that's just your base grain, what most of it is made of. And then there's your speciality grain, which would be like the stout, the Guinness stuff, or a red ale. So think of it as baking a cake, and you'd have almost 4.5 kilos of plain flour, and then you'd have 1/2 kilo of flavoured flour. You get the grains, and then what you have to do is put it through a crusher. They're malted, so they're cooked, as it were. So the first thing is they get the grains from the field, and they bring it in, they malt it, which is like cooking it, so taking a lot of the moisture out to preserve it as well, and cook it to a point where it's ready to be boiled. So that then when you actually crush it, it's almost like you just break the grains in half, and so that when it goes into the water is able to extract the sugars out of the broken grain. You crush it all up, and then you bring your pot of water or your grain fodder or whatever it is up to 67 degrees. Some grains give out different flavours at different temperatures, but usually what you do is you get to 67 degrees and you mix all the grains into it, so it's like a big porridge, and you keep on mixing, and you leave that at 67 degrees for an hour. And what happens is, for that hour at 67 degrees, it's the perfect temperature for those grains to release their sugars and their flavour. Too high, you're almost boiling, and too low, nothing will happen. What can happen then is you might raise the temperature by 10 degrees for 5 minutes or something, just to get a different flavour out. But then once you've done all that, you take all your grains out and you let everything drain out of it. So now you're just left with a whole load of water with all the extract stuff juiced out of the grains themselves. And then what you do is you bring it up to 100 degrees for an hour, and then you add your hops as well. So the hops just give more flavour and bitterness to the beer as well. Then after an hour of that, so an hour to put the hops in, an hour at 100 degrees, and then you cool it down to 20 degrees, stick it into a container and forget about it.